Hi, and welcome to Rebel Heart Tarot Talk with myself, Alice Grist, and with Niki Cotton. We are the co-creators of the Rebel Heart Tarot book, and cards. It confused me because I was reading it and it said Rebel Heart Tarot Guidebook, and it just threw me out there. But anyway, so what we're going to talk about today is the cards that Niki and I starred in. So for those who are new to this deck, or who, it's a new deck, it's not even out yet, generally speaking, it will be soon for most of you, is that these cards were created and collaged by Niki. And we collaged, well, perhaps you could explain to us, Niki, what we did and why it's got so many pictures of us in it.
I think, well, we collaged them just because I love it as an art form. I think it's really interesting and versatile, and also it meant that we could include as many people as possible that we kind of knew and found interesting and connected with, and we could invite them to be in the cards. And then there were personal favorites that we both had, wasn't there, that we kind of, as you would talk about the cards and describe what cards meant and the links you kind of had with them and your reading processes. There were cards that would spring to mind that you'd kind of go, oh, I know the person for this card, and we'd kind of ask them to be involved. And then there'd be the ones where you were kind of like, oh no, this I have to have this is my card, it's my favorite card. And I had the same thing where it's connected with certain ones. So I think that's why we ended up being in particular cards. And then there were ones where we'd got to the point where we were waiting for people, and we ended up just kind of going, actually, do you know what, let's just do these cards ourselves. So there's a few that we've ended up as in extras, but yeah,
I think also there was the element of, it was just bloody good fun.
It was.
There's a few of these cards I'm looking to, like the 10 of Swords, which has me in it. And that was one of the first cards we did. Yep. And I was in a really good mood, and I've been to Go Ape with the kids, and it was my birthday. And and I just remember you being like, well, you need to lay on the floor and you want to just have a go. And I think we'd mixed up some fairy liquid as well so I had bubbles on me, although they don't actually show up in the card. But that was
the bubbles when I was making it, because I wanted it to feel, after you described it as a card, it was kind of that feeling that actually only a certain generation would understand. Younger generations won't get it because they're used to having a mobile phone. But there was that thing, isn't there, as growing up, where you had a landline and you could guarantee the minute you got in the bath and you'd just be relaxing, the phone would go, and you'd be like, oh, I've got to get out of the bath, I've got to go and answer the phone, it might be something really important. And then there was the feeling of you being then splayed on the floor with all this stuff of life around you, trying to answer the phone and not being able to get there, covered in fairy liquid, well, bath bubbles. So that's where it kind of originated from, and then it developed out of that, didn't it?
Yeah, and that was a card that was just joyfully created. And I think, come to think of it, it would have been a hard card to ask anybody else to pose for, because it is basically me dead on the floor with 10 swords in my back, and people are superstitious and perhaps don't want to put themselves into that kind of imagery. But it was certainly something that I took great joy in. And fact, I was just remember the kid, I think it was Ivy or
kids laugh, but they
took the picture, So yes, so that was kind of created out of complete joyfulness, and right back at the beginning, before we had any urgency, because we had lots of time, although I don't think the urgency ever really got to us that much.
No, there were just moments
having to cut them out.
There were just moments where it was kind of like, oh my goodness, we can feel time ticking. And I think that hill climb to get over the halfway point, because I think, you kind of go, oh yeah, 4 months is fine, we've got loads of time, and then you start making it. It's that joyful excitement of first making things and doing I just remember getting those, the WhatsApps would go ping, and then all these amazing pictures would come through that we'd been talking about. I don't know, we need pictures of shoes, or we need pictures, whatever it was, and then all these pictures would come pinging into my box, and it would just be like, oh, they're amazing, can't wait to use them. And there'd be all that excitement, and then there's that little bit where it's the uphill struggle where you're trying to get over that halfway mark, and then you kind of go on that lovely slide down once you've created. But my little pile I've got here of the cards with you in, and this is the 10 of Wands, a 9 of Wands, sorry. This is one of my favorite images. I just love it. And I remember talking with you about it, and you saying how you'd wanted to sort of have a tightrope walking kind of person, and we were kind of working out ways we could do it and how we could visualize it. And then all of a sudden this you in this outfit, I think you were cleaning, and you'd sort of got the kids involved, and you just kind of
Ivy was homesick.
Ivy
was at home sick, and I was probably bored because I couldn't do what I was going to plan to do, and I was basically playing dress up, and got her to take the photo. And because she wasn't feeling up to it, she took one photo, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And it was the lucky photo. It came out really perfect. It's just joyous. I do like that one. There was real joy in making them, and having these pictures just ping in, and just then playing with them and just seeing how they worked, and what worked and what didn't work, and did they sum up? Because again, we'd talk about an idea, and then we'd collect images or get people to input images of themselves, and then I'd sort of go away and hassle my poor son and go, Louis, where he was able to kind of resize things for me so we could drop them in, because I was working in a certain format, and obviously proportionately things needed to work. So he would sit with me, and I'd go, can I have it a bit bigger? I need the heads bigger. And because I always need, and he's like, what is it with you and the heads? Everybody's heads have to be bigger. And I'm like, yeah, but if you put an animal head as a human head, it looks too small. So they all ended up having to be made bigger. And then I would sit and cut everything out and stick it all together. And you wouldn't know, apart from collecting some photos, you would have no idea until I'd send you a picture going, oh, what do you think about this one, as a finished article. So how did that feel for you? Just kind of, because it's quite a, from an idea to a final point, there's quite a big gap.
That feels, sorry, I am really trying hard not to laugh.
Oh, go on.
My husband has just come in through the back door and
crawled
but really noisily.
I didn't hear him.
Noisily, James.
I didn't hear him. To be fair, I didn't hear him.
I put it on mute in the end because I was like, is he trying to be quiet? And I'm trying not to laugh, and I'm trying to listen to you take it very seriously.
Crawling across the floor is quite difficult.
Really noisily. Anyway, so what I would say from what I gathered before I was distracted by him was that I'm really glad I didn't have to do all of that cutting out and stuff. And also, and the whole proportion thing, it just sounds like a headache to me.
I enjoyed it. Yeah, that's my job, isn't it? That's why.
And I've got my attention to detail. My heads, if it was for me, all my heads would have been absolutely all over the place, and it wouldn't have worked at all. So yeah, I mean, but it's amazing to know that I was kind of there with the joyfulness of, oh, we'll put a costume on, let's take a picture and send it to Niki, or let's take several hundred pictures and send them to Niki, and get the kids to do it. And it was kind of, I think that's the magic, isn't it, of working in togetherness. Then I don't have to then think about how it's actually going to turn into something really beautiful.
Although that devil card is not very beautiful, to be fair.
Which one? The devil? Yeah. Do you know what I was going to say? Because I'm looking at the cards that I've got a U in, which is quite a number. And I think it's one of my favorites. I love it when it comes out. Okay, so I mean, obviously for people who may not be familiar with the cards because they've not been around long, is that there's very few human heads in the card, and that was purposeful, wasn't it?
3 cards, I think. There's the 10 of Pentacles, the devil, and death.
Yeah. So very few actual human
expressions and people. And this is you looking completely torn apart and messed up, and I love it. I love it. And we really struggled with the devil card. Like, we were going to have different characters, different types of people. We were in talks. I think there was a couple of different guys we'd asked to do it. No, there was a few, and we had different.
There was a few different
ones come by.
People. It was. I think it's quite a challenging card, isn't it? And I think maybe quite a lot of people felt uncomfortable putting themselves out there, and we were kind of really wrestling with how we were going to approach it. And we did come up with lots of different ideas, lots of visuals. And then I was going through stuff, and it suddenly bubbled up that actually these images that I'd done of myself years ago, with this kind of double exposure feeling and this paint across my face, which were kind of discussing inner turmoil of kind of mental health issues and all the stuff that goes with those kind of dark avenues. And actually, with your description of what the devil card is, that image really kind of summed it up, I think. And there's a lot, you know, I know my aunt was like, oh, you shouldn't put your face on that card, and she was really kind of quite,
yeah, but that's
yeah. But it was just kind of like, well, actually, it's not about the person, it's about external and internal kind of stuff that we all do battle with.
Yeah, I mean, when I've been using these cards recently, and the devil has come out a few times for people, and I feel very warm towards it now, because it's you, and it feels like you're in my life. You're like a good, solid friend, and somebody who has her head screwed on. I know you don't always, like none of us do, but having the devil show up with your guys almost feels magical, because it's like, well, we can all suffer, we can all go to these dark places, and then rise again. I don't know, it just feels like a warm approach to the devil, and what you do creatively with yourself and your life as a kind of cure to any difficulties that you may have, or that we all have. It's humanizing. It has humanized my devil massively.
Oh, well, that's good, because it's again, it's that thing, isn't it, from an artist's point of view, how I perceive something or visualize it might not necessarily always work with everybody, but the fact that you're somebody who does read the cards, and it's humanized it and taken that extreme horror, I think, out of it as a card.
Well, it's one of the cards. I mean, let's be frank, people who don't know about tarot cards are scared by the devil, because they presume there's something demonic going on there. And it bores me, actually, to have to say that this isn't the case, but it is. It needs to be said, because people do think that's the case. Like, they see the tarot as in league with the devil or something, but actually, just the devil is always something that's within us. It's an aspect of our, like you say, mental health. It's the limitations and boundaries that have built up over time that mean that we cannot live in full expression of ourselves. And so this card in the end just came about. It's just so perfect. And in use of it, it really has expanded my understanding of that card. Good. Shall I read the devil,
go on.
The book, just to kind of let people sort of understand what we were aiming for? So the keywords: mental illness, confinement, stagnation, addiction, loss of control. Imagery: a close-up of a face torn through, fragmented and whirling, which I'm sure we have all felt that at times, from time to time. Meaning: the devil is within us all. Many are frightened of some occult meaning to this card, but what we might be more concerned about are the human demons within. These consist of our own fallibilities, mental illness, bouts of depressions, and the way we stay fragmented by reaching for crutches that do not help, such as alcohol, disordered eating, or addictions ranging from shopping to drugs to sex. The devil is a card that arises when the anxious voices within keep us stuck, trapped, and stagnant. As you sit with this card, consider your mental well-being. How might you have fallen into negative thought patterns, damaging habits, or allowed fear to dictate your choices? The devil is a poignant reflection that allows you to objectively see your woes. From this place, only you are empowered to do anything about your situation. Do you choose to sit with your devil a little while longer, or is now the time to seek healing, support, and solace as you work towards a happier internal world? And then there's some affirmation. So the affirmation is, the devil is my own today. I choose differently. And personal prompt, how might I help myself today to heal, recover, and find support? So
Yeah.
I feel like the devil is no longer frightening.
That's good. That's good. And actually, you talking with, about anxiety and fear, I think, because it's come up for me a couple of times in the last few weeks. And yeah, my anxiety has been through the roof and my fear has been through the roof. And it's that thing where your brain's like in a rat trap and it's just going round and round and round, and a hamster wheel kind of, and you feel like you're just internally screaming, which is that card.
Yeah, but if you look at it, you've got jewelry on and you've got your clothes on. It's like,
and lipstick and eye makeup, actually.
Yeah, you're there doing the day, and this one
Yeah.
eye is kind of, you're existing through one eye, through one clear-sighted part of yourself, whereas the rest of it's in turmoil. And I think that's just such a good artistic expression of what the devil actually is, from tarot. So I love that one. I was going to say, shall we choose?
Yeah, go on.
Like our favorite one. So I'll choose my favorite one of you. So I'm going to put the devil to the side because I feel like I kind of just chose that as my favorite one. But from the others that you were in,
Oh God, you see, I've got so many that I love yours.
it's so hard. Too bloody talented.
No, the thing is, we've talked about the Four of Swords, but that one just makes me laugh. It just makes me laugh because, again, it's the memory of the making that makes me chuckle. And it's you at this time last year, well, it was October, wasn't it? You this time last year kind of thing, with a collapsed swimming pool, paddling pool, floating on a lino that you made your husband blow up at sort of 9 o'clock in the morning, with debris of leaves around you, in his outfit, in his work clothes, with his hard hat on. Just kind of lie down and let's take a picture on a Sunday morning, in the kind of dead of autumn.
I mean, we were absolutely beside ourselves, tears streaming down the face, laughter, wondering what the neighbours could possibly think we were up to.
And I just remember the pictures coming through and just, oh my goodness, just laughing. And I think that's what a lot of these cards have been about. There's been so much joy in creating it, and chuckles about we've chuckled a lot, haven't we?
It's been brilliant. But I'm just looking through these ones of you. I'm gonna
I love that one.
You love the star.
I just love it. I think it's partly that image of you, the climbing over, and that feeling, you feel so ginormous in that space. And again, the star that your husband had made, with the stories that come from, with you talking about, why you wanted that to be the star, and the kind of everything that went with that, and the bucket, from the fact the work that was being done with Mason that we were talking about the other day with his the Otter Had, and that was the bucket that was just, and it's just all these incidentals from life, but it's got this beautiful, the sunrise or sunset, I think it is there, and sort of overcoming that big mountain and that beautiful sea that you're stepping into. And
gorgeous. And
the image of you from that kind of the youth, because I know we've kind of, because of that, the 10 of Pentacles, there's me on the chair there, which was it's one of those images that I had from years ago that I feel like I'm stepping back into. And this card for me is this, it's you stepping back into that person that you were years ago, that, and life gets in the way, doesn't it? And but I love,
so that's your favorite. See,
one of them. I love them all with you.
I really can't choose a favorite with you in it, because honestly, what I have to say about these ones with you in, they're super iconic, Niki. They're such bold, strong images. It's like, how do you choose a favorite? And then you got the box image, and then
That's the one I'm most uncomfortable with.
This
That King of
one?
Pentacles.
Why on earth?
I don't know. But I think you were saying, because we were talking about this, weren't we, when we were making them, and it's kind of stayed with me, because I was saying that's the one card that I really struggle with.
So you just struggle with the card in general, not so much your image.
No, the visual of it, not, and I didn't really understand the kind of the whole meaning of the card until you then discussed it and said, oh, it's very much about masculine energy in a position of power, where you kind of sometimes have to go and ask permission for being able to take something forward, you know, kind of like teacher, bank manager, that kind of authoritative figure type person.
I wouldn't say that now, though.
But at the time, and when you said that, but this is going back to like a year ago when we first started it, because I was like, I just can't work out why I don't like it. And then I thought, oh, well, those are the kind of characters that I always rebel against. Yeah, I kind of automatically. So why I stuck myself in it, because we were kind of in that stage where we were right at the beginning, and we were who we had available to us until we formed where we were going with the cards and how we felt we were going to develop them. But yeah, it's
well, let's reframe that card, because I don't know what I said about it, but I would be thinking that this is us stepping into financial, well, no, it's if this card arises for a person, it's them being called into like a financial maturity that asks them to take responsibility for their material world and to recognize themselves as the kind of emperor of that, the god of that, rather than being sort of beholden to people like bank managers. It's that crazy.
I also think when we were doing the cards again, because the court cards are the cards that I've always struggled with the most. And I remember talking to you about this and saying, well, they always ask you to kind of see a person rather than a situation. So how can you redress that? And if I come up in a reading for me, I always get really stuck on that, because I go, well, I wasn't actually asking about that, and there's a person there, and I don't want to know about the person. How do I develop that person into a situation? So I know that through that you have also, that's kind of opened a door with you, didn't it, of kind of going, oh well, actually, how can I look at this as a situation rather than being just channeling down a person route? So maybe that's why
I would generally always bring it back to self.
Yeah,
always bring it back to yourself, because otherwise you're just trying to pinpoint it onto somebody else. And actually the cards, we're not reading for somebody else, we're reading for ourselves. So if you get the King of Pentacles, and I do find the court cards can be challenging and tricky. There's something I've struggled with, because you want to kind of place it on this other third party for it to make sense, but actually what is it in you that needs to become the king, the queen, the knave, whatever, the knight? And that might be part of the journey that these cards took me on, is, you know, the King of Pentacles for a long time for me, it was my job and my boss paying me. And that was a big corporate job that I became very uncomfortable with towards the end. But as I've now created these cards and over the past year now work for myself, I am, as just like you are, your own boss, and therefore that third party influence is no longer a reality or a necessity. And for many people, even if you have got a job and maybe you love your job and maybe it's empowered, how can you still reap the benefits of that job and put yourself on that throne? You know,
yeah,
that's how I would come across that. But these cards, honestly, between the cards with you on, they're literally, they're all t-shirt material, they're all iconic, they're all like
album covers
and posters, and it's really hard to choose a favorite.
I'm so influenced by music and that album artwork, you know, when you used to buy the albums in 12 inches and things like that. And I do think pop culture wise, it is a big, massive influence. And my sister-in-law was actually looking through these the other day, and she was like, oh, these could all be album covers. but that's my
Yeah.
favorite one.
Do they still do album covers? I guess you need a little picture, don't you, for
Yeah,
your
that
Spotify
tiny
or your
picture on your phone, and who buys albums these days? My brother was saying that people don't buy it, because I still buy an album because I think it's really important. But he was, and I remember asking him and saying, why do people just have, you go to buy an album and then some songs have got loads of downloads and others haven't, but they haven't been singles. And he said, oh, people will just buy what they like from the album and they'll leave the rest. And I'm like, but it's a whole story. You kind of buy the whole thing. That's what you're buying into. But people,
the world has
consume it
changed, hasn't it?
differently.
But yeah, that magician one is gorgeous.
I do love the magician.
That is gorgeous.
I know that's a card that you've found challenging previously, haven't you? But I just,
all the challenging ones for me today. Yeah, I mean, I think it's when we meet with a card that's outside of our own experience or energy can be quite difficult. But I think the more you read cards, and like over 30 years, the more you start to integrate them.
Yeah.
And this is, guidance for anybody picking up a pack of tarot cards for the first time, whether it's ours or another deck. There are going to be cards in there you just don't get.
Yeah.
And you might not get them for years. You might even get a concept of them, a kind of an idea of them, or what you think it means based upon maybe what you've read in the book. But until you've lived through that card, so for me, Judgment was a big one. I just couldn't, the concept of it was a bit alien, a little bit highfalutin, kind of biblical almost, until I lived with it and had that card come up every day, or for every reading for the best part of a year. And I realized that all it was doing was spiraling me closer to my truth. But because I had been so far away from my truth, it was really hard to understand what that was. And sometimes it felt like punishment or karma. But really all it wanted was that purity, that essence. And so now I have an understanding of Judgment based on my experience, but anybody else's experience might be really different. And I would always give people permission to allow your experience to be unique. But I think my favorite cards of the ones that I'm in, there are a lot of blue skies on them.
Yeah, there is.
If I hold them
There
up,
is actually.
you got this kind of blue sky energy going through, as well as a few darker images like the 10 of Swords.
I know, but that's still colourful, isn't it?
But I guess, my favorite ones, it's just bringing it back to the sweetness and the reality of where I'm at. Is there's me and my husband, there's
Yeah,
me and my daughters, and then there's me and you.
Yeah.
Like they talk, don't they, about being in love with your reality.
Yeah.
So these, I mean, I've never as yet climbed that hill, or it looks
I
like
love,
so it could be in the future,
I love that card.
spiritual stuff, but I've never been there, I've never done that, I've never sat on the edge of a cliff like that. Well, it's metaphorically maybe so, but I mean, and I do love that one because it's just fun. And that one, the memories, but I think the ones I love most are the ones that I actually am already living, which is the on this wacky bus with you going wherever the hell, and then me and my husband and the ups and downs we've been through, and then this
that card was almost a fully formed idea for you, wasn't it? You kind of, we talked that through for a while, and then when it bubbled up, you were kind of like, I want to be in this space with this microphone, and who's got the microphones kind of talking, and that whole
well, it was based on a music video I saw.
Yeah,
not Johnny Cash. It was Bob Dylan.
Oh, that was it.
Is it John Baez?
I
now it's completely, but he was in a relationship, I think it was with John Baez, and there's this video of them online where it is black and white, and it's very much just them on a stage with this one light coming down, and they're singing It Ain't Me You're Looking For, Babe. And it's a gorgeous, that's not the name of the song, it's the lyric I happen to remember, but I just loved it. And that formed, and it wasn't I didn't want it to be me and Jay at points. I thought it would be somebody else posing for that, but it came around as it was meant to.
Yeah. And the swans that was walking.
That's romantic gobbledygook from when me and Jay had been on our first date like 20 odd years ago, and it's not gobbledygook, it's very sweet. And we went over a bridge and it was nighttime, and I made some cheesy comment about there were some swans on the river, and I came out with, did you know swans were mate for life? And for me, it was a passing comment, but for him, it was I think the moment he realized I was his lobster or whatever it is. And kind of, yeah, he's always felt very attached to swans within our relationship. He's got swans on a tattoo, and there's some beautiful swans just up on the wall there. And for him, that was the deal breaker, I think, or the deal maker. And this,
I was going to say, with the swans as well, you hadn't told me that story until afterwards, and it was whilst we were discussing the card walking,
you just came up,
and there were these two swans that flew across the sky, and I never see them flying.
no.
And when I do see them flying, they're always really kind of peculiar. They're generally in water or sat on the side of a pond, but they were flying over the sea. And then a bit later on, a couple of days later, I'd seen two in the sea, which again is not something that I often see.
No.
So it was it was built from that. And then I think it was around about your birthday, and you opened a piece of work that was
The one that's up there, yeah.
And then you told me, and it was just kind of like, you've got to be swans. There is, you just have to be swans. And then, yeah, it kind of.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It is beautiful. It's lyrical. There's something magical about that card. And then there's this one, which is just like, is that even a card? That's just my life.
I love that card. That is such, I love the teacups as hats. I just think it is just the cutest thing ever, and it kind of makes me feel of that. It's almost like a sweeter version of the 10 of Cups, where everybody's with the Mad Hatter's tea party with their crazy hats on, but it's that moment of joy with the kids that is just, and they're both pulling you in different ways, but you're standing together at that water's edge, and it is just, again, it's that sky that's a bit, that it's just, there's a real purity to that card, and just a moment filled with love.
Yeah, do you know, looking at that, I'm looking now across our cards. So I'm looking at your cards, which are these iconic album covers, and like you've made yourself a piece of art, whereas the ones with me on are a bit more like actual snapshots from my life.
Yeah, no, but I think that is just because it's the same with this. You know, it makes me think of you with the kids having parties.
That's my arm, isn't it?
Whacking the piñata, but it's just, yeah, that is just, there's just so much.
And that picture was taken years before these cards were conceived.
And that's
not on that beach. It's really weird because it really does look like that. I was on the beach, but I wasn't. It was taken on another beach somewhere else. You've done your magic.
Yeah, that beach is Rose-on-Sea,
which I've never been to yet.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I love that card. I love it. It just makes me smile every time I see it, and it makes me feel warm, and it makes me feel full up.
Yeah, I feel actually looking at these, and the ones of me and you and the husband and it does it, and the dog, my dog's in there in the fall, and there is just a warmth, and just, you know, when people connect to these cards, God knows what other people will make of them.
I can't wait to hear, because I know how much we feel about them, and it is love and laughter and smiles. It's like
literally our souls are imprinted within these cards, which means probably some people just won't get them or won't like them, but hopefully they'll find fragments. Some people will find fragments of themselves and aspects of their lives within.
I hope so. I do hope so, because they're just,
well, I think that's the balance is there, because they've got your pictures, which are, like I say, quite iconic and big, and they may be aspects of your personality, but they're not like in the minor. If the whole deck had been just me and my kids, it's a different story, but there's this infusion of different energy. It's they're really magical. Wow. I'm feeling quite
we keep doing that thing, but then this is that thing where, you know, you've done the right thing, that we can look at these images individually as images, and not even look at them in the context of a deck of cards, but just look at them as an image of two people off on a little adventure. And I think each one stands on its own as an image without needing to have the context of all the other images, strangely.
Yes.
But also the fact that we're still really giddy about our own projects. Which does feel like we're going, oh, well done us, aren't we clever? But that we are still so giddy about it, and we're still so enthused by it, and we're still in love with it, and it still feels fresh and exciting. And we're still wanting to kind of talk about it and touch it and be involved with it, and impart it with other people and kind of see what other people think and share it. I think it feels like we've done the right thing.
Yeah, I feel like it might be never ending. So I think in 20 years' time, we'll be sat here and we'll get these cards out again, and we'll have so much more to talk about and reminisce over, but also God knows where else these cards are going to take us and how understandings will grow. And I can just imagine that conversation, you know, little nightgowns and wrinkles and
Horlicks.
wisdom, all of our wisdom coming to the
Our
surface.
croneness, although we're reaching crone age anyway. But yeah, it's just
we're not.
I just
Yeah,
I kind of like the fact that middle-aged kind of, I know people don't like using middle-aged these days, but it's
no, I was quite resistant to that then, wasn't I?
yeah, but I quite like the fact that all that wisdom and life skills, because I could not have done these visuals 20 years ago. I
couldn't have come up with the tarot card meanings without having lived through an awful lot of
life.
Yeah,
it's lived life, and I think all that kind of stuff, when you look back and go, bloody hell, I think it gives you that understanding and that more rounded kind of understanding of life and other people and empathy and connection. And I think all of that has gone into this, which is why when you would be talking about a card and you'd kind of go, oh, I know who needs to be in this card. I know the person who has the energy of this or has lived part of this life or whatever. And so I think that's, again, what makes these cards so interesting, is that they're not just imbued with you and I.
No, there's plenty of other people in there.
Traditional tarot, it's all the other people.
And we will come to them. So more videos with hopefully interviews with people, or if people don't want to be in interviews, then we will talk about them with their permission in this space. So I think we'll leave it there. I think we've given a good kind of indication of the cards that we are in and why, and the magic behind that. And I would ask everybody to please maybe choose of the cards you've seen today. Let us know in the comments below which one you liked, or which one you felt kind of pulled you in or you found interesting. And otherwise, keep subscribing, liking, sharing with your friends, and we'll be back with more of this Rebel Heart Tarot talk into the future. Thank you for being here. Bye.
Bye.